Hello everyone, and welcome to the updated Auchindoun Gold Challenge Mode Guide. I'm your host Babyjace, and I'm the Unholy Death Knight in this group. Auchindoun is a pretty easy challenge mode, especially if you have Death Knights, because for every Death Knight you have, that is an extra Dark Sim you can use on mobs in this instance. Now, if you are a Death Knight, you want to make sure you glyph your Dark Sim so that it can be used every 30 seconds instead of every minute. Another good class is Druid, because you can root adds later on that are kind of troublesome if you don't have one. Now, for this first pull in here, you can either pull all three of them together like we do, or you could pull them one at a time. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure that you are interrupting the Soulbinder's mind control spell, Bend Will. That's really the most important thing. Other than that, you can AoE stun them and just AoE them down. Just make sure that they don't get off a giant AoE shield. Like, we kept typhooning them and stunning and gripping it so that it wouldn't actually get the shield cast off Void Shell. Now, once you've killed all the mobs, the boss will start to spawn, and you really want to have all your range right where the boss currently is in front of your screen. If your range are there, you are completely immune to all mechanics that the boss does. And this is makes it really easy, because you can just sit there and tunnel into the boss and you never ever have to get off of him. Once the boss does spawn and your range are over there in that nice little area, go ahead and just pre-pot Lust and use all of your DPS cooldowns on this boss. You just want to kill him as fast as you possibly can. You can even have a Moonkin go, or your Resto Druid go Moonkin for this fight. There really is no damage to be taken on this fight, assuming your melee can dodge things and you have a lot of range, because again, range that are standing at that area where the boss first was before he jumped, you basically take no damage. You actually just get to sit there and just tunnel into the boss. Now, if you are melee and you don't have something like AMS, you probably do want to stand behind the shield, as standing out and getting hit by his AoE pulse, Consecrated Light, you're probably going to die unless you have an anti-magic shell. This boss is honestly pretty easy, especially since every range member you have just gets to ignore everything on the encounter. Once the boss dies, go ahead and make your way to this hallway. Now, this hallway has three different types of not name mobs, but powerful mobs. They're the Arbiter, the Magus, and the Shadow Priest thing. Now, the Arbiter will charge range members and do an AoE stun on the melee when he comes back. You just need to interrupt this, and he doesn't really do much other than that. Just make sure you keep interrupting it. The Soul Priest does a dot and a giant AoE fear on the ground. Don't stand in the AoE fear, you're probably going to die if you get hit by it. As for the dot, you as a Death Knight, you are able to Dark Sim the Soul Priestess, and you can put the dot on some of the mobs. So for example, I put my dot on the Magus, and he died very fast. The Magus just casts arcane shots at you, and he also does these weird arcane orbs that go along the ground in a circle around him, like an outward spiral around him. Just try not to get hit. They do a lot of damage. Once you've killed those first three packs, now you don't have to do them together like we did, but you can do them separately. But once you do kill them, you're going to go ahead and go to the fourth pack and kill the Arbiter first. The Arbiter is the more annoying mob here, because he does do the AoE stun, and that can potentially kill your tank if you are pulling more than one group of mobs. Just make sure you're focusing on the Arbiter. You can Dark Sim the Magus, but you really don't want to Dark Sim this one, because you want to have your Dark Sim for the next pull, because there's another Soul Priest on the next pull, and that allows you to kill big mobs on the next pull a lot faster. Once you've killed that pack, you're going to want to go ahead and army if you have a Death Knight, because this pull is probably the hardest pull of the entire instance. And you're just going to army, you're going to grip them together, and you're going to AoE stun. And make sure you Dark Sim the Soul Priestess and use it on the Warden or the Magus or whatever. Like if you have two DKs, one on the Warden, one on the Magus would work. Or if you only have one, just put it on the Warden. The Warden is the hardest mob in here, as he's the one who AoE grips people in, and he puts down the little AoE circle that does a lot of damage. You see our warrior here died to the arcane orbs floating around, so just try not to get hit by those. They do a lot of damage. Once you've killed those mobs, just go ahead and make your way into the boss's room, do a countdown, pre-pot, whatever, and just pull the boss. Now, for this boss, you definitely can Dark Sim it. It's very important. It does a lot of damage. So what you want to do is you want to Dark Sim her and interrupt her first cast of the Shadow Spike. And this allows you to get the Shadow Word Pain that she does, as that does a lot of damage. Now once you do have that ability, use it on her, and then drag her into the middle, because she puts the safe zones right next to her position in the middle, and this will allow your melee to keep DPSing her. See, she wasn't exactly in the middle here, so we couldn't DPS her from within the pool. Once again, coming out of this, interrupt her Mind Spike and Dark Sim her, and you can get the Shadow Word Pain cast, and just use it again on her, as this is going to do a lot of damage. She's going to summon a bunch of spirits. Just go ahead and ignore them. Make sure your tank gets threat, but really you don't want to concern yourself with them. They despawn when you kill the boss, and the boss should be pretty low HP at this point. Once you do kill the boss, go ahead and make your way further down the hallway. The Inferno should be coming down somewhere around here. Just make sure you kill the Inferno. You can slow it down with slows, and that helps a lot. You don't have to go and pull the imps like how we did. We went to the imps and Dark Sim them just because the Dark Sim does do a lot of damage from the imp cast. Our DK tank almost died, so I mean, honestly, just kill the Infernal and then go do the imps. It's really not worth risking a wipe here. But once the Infernal does die, go ahead and kill both of those imps, and then kill the Infernal. Or, you know, your tank could also pull the Felguard while you're still killing the Infernal, because the Felguard doesn't really do too much damage. It only does a frontal cleave, and as long as you're not facing him towards anyone, and as long as you're not standing in it yourself, you're not going to take any damage from that Felguard. A note, however, those big imps that cast the giant nuke onto people, if you are a warlock, you can enslave demon those. So if you sacrifice your pet and then enslave demon, like, you're going to be doing a lot of damage, because those demons do a lot of damage. Once you've killed the Felguard, make your way to the 5 imps. Make sure when you use AoE interrupts, like your Engineering Belt, your Blood Elf Silence, stuns, Ursul's Vortex into Typhoons, make sure you at least save 1 AoE interrupt for the next pull. You just need 1 AoE interrupt. So for us, we saved my Blood Elf Silence and my Remorseless Winter. Just again, make sure you're interrupting these. You really don't want any cast to go off. Once those are dead, make your way to the next pole. And what you want your blood DK to do, or any DK for that for matter, is you want them to go into the middle and just AoE grip them all together. And as soon as they're AoE gripped, I started my Remorseless and I Blood Elf Silenced them towards the end of their cast. And when they were stunned, they pretty much melted. Like, they died so fast. And this is the most efficient way to do that pull. Now, if you do not have a DK at all, if you don't have a DPS DK or a tank DK, this pull's a little trickier. You can't... It's a lot harder to get them all together. I mean, you can always Ursul's and Typhoon, but it's not really good. So you're going to have to split this into 3 separate pulls, which isn't exactly hard. You just make sure you interrupt the imps, and that's all you really need to do. Now for this boss, just use all your cooldowns on the pole, you know, pre-pot everything, and just make sure that you don't spread the Curtain of Flame debuff. That's really the most important part of this fight. As for the intermission, just make sure you have it assigned like what you're going to CC. Like generally, if we have a hunter in the group, we say, hey hunter, you know, ice trap the first imp that comes out, and then that one is just completely, you know, just don't touch it, and it's completely irrelevant for the rest of the encounter. Or if 2 spawn right next to each other, maybe we just AoE them down together and just kill them super fast. As for the Felguard, you can use Entangling Roots on it and completely ignore the Felguard, as that's what we did here. And we just killed both of the imps that spawned right next to each other. while CCing the third one that spawned farther away. As you see, he's frost trapped way in the back. Boss comes down, and we pretty much get back to DPSing him. Note that there is a giant, like, it's a small circle around that middle of that star, and that you will take a lot of damage if you're standing in that, so try not to stand in that. But assuming you have no more imps up that are free casting, if this boss dies pretty fast. This is probably the hardest boss of the entire instance though, simply because this intermission, if people aren't used to it and aren't used to CCing or controlling the imps, like this intermission could actually be it's pretty much what wipes you. But it only takes a couple tries and then you get used to it. Once you've killed the boss, take the portal, and you can pretty much just attack Drag the Dominator. You really don't need to attack the imp. I mean, it just dies passively to cleave. Don't really waste your damage on it. Just interrupt it. Make sure you save one interrupt for Drag the Dominator though, because you want to interrupt their Grim Roar of Service. If they get the Grim Roar of Service off, or Grim Roar of Servitude off, it will summon a Fel Hunter, and this will interrupt any casters you have in the group. It will interrupt them. Note, however, if you did have a Warlock Enslaved Demon, you do need to kill the imp before the boss dies, because you need it for kill count. Once you go to the next room, just make sure you Entangling Root that little Felguard guy, and you can just pretty much ignore him as long as you're not standing next to him. If you don't have an Entangling Root, you can tank the Ghoul Kosh on top of him. Just make sure you have like 2 like stun rotations. So like an Asphyxiate for his first spin, and then maybe a Leg Sweep for the second, and then Asphyxiate for the third, and so on. But you really just want to ignore him. Just make sure you have stuns on him or an Entangling Root. Obviously, since we had a Druid, we opted for Entangling Root, because that pretty much just removes him from the picture. Note, if you are a DK, you can Dark Sim Ghoul Kosh, and sometimes you will get his Unstable Affliction, and that deals a lot of damage to him. Like, a lot. I think each tick was dealing like 44k damage. That's a lot of damage that you can deal to him. Sometimes you'll get the Shadow Bolt, sometimes you'll get the Drain Life. The Drain Life is really lackluster, don't bother using it. But the Shadow Bolt and the Dot are pretty good. As for this guy, you can Dark Sim Immolate, but if you can't get that first Immolate, it's really not worth using Dark Sim anymore on him, because you want to have Dark Sim up for the boss. Dark Simming the boss is way more important than Dark Simming this guy. As for him, just make sure you have an interrupt for him if he puts the Rain of Fire on himself, and just don't stand in it. This is a very simple mini-boss. Once he's dead, click the portal again and go straight to the last boss. Now, for this boss, you're going to lust on the pole, CDs on the pole, everything you got here. This boss is actually pretty easy. But as a DK, you want to Dark Sim on the pole, and you want to interrupt his Shadow Bolts. And hopefully if you did things right and you don't push too fast, you will be able to Dark Sim his Dot. And if you do get to Dark Sim this Dot and put it on him, it does a lot of damage, so you definitely want to take advantage of that. As for the Infernal, just root it, and the Infernal does nothing. So, like, if you have a Druid, you just root it, and you just stay away from it, and it does nothing. As for Chaos Bolt, you can Dark Sim the Chaos Bolt and use it on the boss, and this does a lot of damage to the boss. Generally, what you want to do is, if it goes on a Hunter, you can also Deterrence Reflect it back. If you have a Warrior, you can Mass Spell Reflect it back. If you have a Shaman, you can Reflect Totem it back. But, I mean, you should have a B-Res up, so it's worth it to have someone die. If there's absolutely nothing they can do to not die, it is worth it, because it does so much damage to the boss. And this boss is pretty simple, especially if you have a DK. Hopefully, you get this one pretty easily. If not, it is a pretty easy instance, so you just gotta give it a few tries, and, I mean, eventually you're going to get it. If you have any suggestions for what I missed, or maybe you have a better strat in mind, or just anything, go ahead and leave it in the comments. anything you do leave in the comments, I generally read and I will respond. So if you have a question, I'll definitely respond to those. And if you liked the video, if it helped you get gold, if you know, you just want to show your support, go ahead and subscribe. You know, hit the like button. Up in front of you, you should see all 8 challenge modes. Just click on any one of them and it'll take you to the next challenge mode that you want to work on. Other than that, have a good day.